Welcome back. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television, and we are doing something different. Our guest today is not in the studio, but also in the studio, but he's from his very comfortable office, and
he'll joining us via Zoom.
He will be joining us via Zoom. We're talking about Lagos, an artist's perspective of a city-state with Mufu Onifade. He's been described as a total artist. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm going to start with the very first thing I got to know about you, which is the Araism. How did you come about that?
Okay. The journey into the development of Araism began way back in 1989. That was a year after I graduated from the Polytechnic. So, it was the drive to be different. Wanted to create something totally different in arts. And so the experiment began. When I started the experiment, my belief was that it was going to last only 6 months. But eventually, it lasted, 7 years. That's between 1989 and 1996. Then by 1997, I took time to produce some works. And 1998, I had the launching of the technique of that painting. Basically, Araism is taken from the Yoruba word Ara.
Ara.
Ara means wonder. Yes, and then there is Ara. Ara means thunder. These are the elements you find in my paintings. And then we have Ara, which is a relative or relation. And then we have Ara, which is a skin or body. Now, all these components, when they are put together, they form the basis for Araism. Now, let me explain. Ara wonder, it means that the first thing that will attract you in that work is actually aesthetics. Aesthetics is wonderful, it's beautiful. So you'll be attracted by the beauty of the work. Then Ara, you see those splitting lines across the paintings. It's like when thunder strikes at night. The effect you have of all those white lines is coming out in black on the paintings. Then Ara, which is body or skin, when you take a microscopic look at the skin, the kind of effect you have is also what you find on the painting. And then Ara, which is a relative or relation, means that all of these three components must interrelate in order to make a total beautiful work. And those are the whole essence of that's the whole essence of Araism. So Araism is actually taken from the Yoruba root words, and they are coined. The ism is just the philosophy behind the spirit of the creativity. That's what Araism.
All right. From what you just said, I'm curious.
You say what?
I said, from what you have just told us now, I'm curious. I'd like to know, take us back to your formative years and how it influenced your artistic identity.
I began my journey into professional arts at Lagos State Council for Art and Culture in 1985. And the dream was actually to study fine art. I never wanted to study any other thing outside of fine art. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. And then since I joined the Arts Council in 1985, I began to mingle with professional artists, of all kinds, whether performing artists, whether visual artists, whether literary artists, whether music artists. I was able to mingle.
Are you there?
Are you there?
No.
He's been talking about his journey to art, and of course, while we wait for the network, his description of Araism, it's like bits and pieces of everything. When he said Ara,
that's thunder.
Yes, Ara, relatives, people, Ara,
your body, skin,
and then one more. So it's a bit, it's
Ara,
a
wonder.
yes, it's bits and pieces, you know, being put together, you know, in all of this. While we wait, let's still continue to talk about what he has said so far. You asked him a question now. He said the formative years.
Because, you know, telling us that he wanted to just do fine art. I mean, that really answers my question. Because, you know, for some people, they just fall into it. But for him, I see that this is something that he had wanted to do. He knew what he was getting himself into, you know, and that's inspiring. And
our producer has described him as a total, you know, artist. Is into stage, you know, he's into stage art, is into painting, is also a sculpture. So truly, he is a total artist. As we await network to come back, our guest today is Mufu Onifade. Our producer said we should call him Madam Mufu. And we're just discussing Lagos, an artist's perspective of a city-state. Another question I would like to ask him if he comes back is, you know, how has Lagos now, you know, shaped his craft and, you know, his career? Because, you know, they say in Lagos, everything is possible.
Lagos is a land that when you come in, you prosper. I mean, that's one question that I would also like to, you know, for him to answer. How, you know, Lagos is peculiar. Lagos is a story on its own, you know. So we'd like to know how, you know, growing up in Lagos, his activities in Lagos, his experience in Lagos has also influenced his artistic journey.
And, you know, another thing I'd like to find out, you know, Lagos is described as a unique, very unique state. Some even call Lagos a country on its own. And, you know, and some even say, oh, Lagos is a spirit. And I'd like to also find out that, you know, being an artist, how can he, you know, describe Lagos with his art, be it
through the lens of an artist?
Yes. No, we'll be specific here. We'll talk about being a sculpture. Is there a way you can, you know, just design Lagos with all, you know, with all we have described him with, you know? Those are things we're looking forward to hearing from him.
All right, I think we should go on a short break now. When we return, the conversation continues. Hopefully, our guest will be here with us again. Thank you for staying tuned. It is still the conversation. And just before we went on that short break, we were discussing, or we have been discussing with Mufu Onifade. He is, did I get that right?
Onifade ko.
Onifade. Onifade. Yes. I won't forget that. All right. And we are discussing Lagos, an artist's perspective of a city-state. And I asked, because I was curious about, you know, I saw while he was answering Adebinke's question, I could see the passion, you know, in what he was saying. And that was why I asked about his formative years and how it influenced his artistic journey. So you can take it up from there, sir.
Okay, so life began at the Lagos State Art and Culture, like I said, where I was able to mix and mingle with so many professional artists, the big names in the industry. And because I got to meet them, then I became curious about my own, you know, personal life as well. How could I make it, you know, in art, especially in visual art, without infringing on the style that any other person was doing before? So this was what actually informed my decision after I completed my polytechnic education, you know, to now begin a journey into the experiment. So I think one of the influences is the fact that I was very lucky to have met with so many professional Lagos artists, Lagos-based artists. You know, people like Baba Kolade Oshinowo, people like Baba Yusuf Grillo, you know. Then much later, people like Abiodun Olaku, people like Oluwatunde, Oluwajayi. You know, these are the big names in the arts who are ahead of me. I met them in the industry. And I said I never wanted to paint like any of them. I wanted to start painting like myself. And I wanted to create something that when anybody sees the work, even without seeing my signature, they will know, this is Mufo Onifade. And that was what I was able to achieve later with the experiment, in Arising. So basically, that was the beginning of my journey into art.
Okay.
Of course, we need to also know that I later went to the university, to back my degrees, both the first and the master's degree, to augment what I was doing professionally and artistically.
Okay. I also found out that you trained under the legendary Lemaguya of Ethiopia.
Yes.
Yes. Can you tell us, what your experience was like with him?
With Lemaguya?
Lemaguya of Ethiopia.
Yes. Lemaguya was a legendary Ethiopian artist.
Okay.
I met him in 1992. Actually, I went to Ethiopia on a performance level because I was also into performance. That time, we went to open the Nigerian house, the Nigerian embassy that was built and commissioned that year. Was declared open by the then deputy, I think, vice president, under the Babangida regime. So, so it was after our performance that night. We had a fantastic performance. And I'd already told our director, Sagbenga Shonuga, who is now Oba Gbenga Shonuga, I told him that when we go to Ethiopia, I would love to meet Lemaguya. Because 2 years earlier, in 1992, I saw his painting on animal skin. And I've been looking forward to see him paint. So when we got to Ethiopia, and he attended that particular ceremony, I was so glad. I walked up to him, and I told him I would like him to train me. And so the Nigerian embassy, under the leadership of the then Ambassador Segun Olusola, was able to take up all the responsibility of enrolling me in his African Art Museum and Training Institute. So I stayed back. When my colleague returned to Nigeria, I stayed back to learn painting on animal skin. And that was why in 1992, after my training, and I returned to Nigeria, I became the foremost Nigerian to master that particular painting style. And I also began to practice, and I still practice it up to today.
Oh, fantastic.
So,
okay, now that when you came back to Nigeria, did you stay in Lagos?
I stayed in Lagos all my life.
Okay, let's talk about Lagos. As an artist, how would you describe Lagos? Because a lot of people have different descriptions about Lagos. Some call it a spirit. Some call it, a country on its own. How would you now describe Lagos from an artistic perspective?
I think the simple description I can give is that Lagos is a land of limitless opportunities.
Okay.
The opportunities are just too limitless. I make bold to say that the patronage and the popularity I've received in art today, if I'd stayed outside of Lagos, I don't think I would have enjoyed them if I stayed out of Lagos. I think the advantage I have with my art is the fact that I was raised in Lagos. I got to Lagos when I was 7 years old in 1973. And surprisingly, I was brought to Lagos to learn organizing. The idea of education was not even part of, the plan. So I was enrolled in school in 1980 when the then governor of Lagos State, Alhaji Lateef Jakonde, under the UPN government, made it mandatory that parents must return, their wards to school. And they were, they said they were going to deal with any parents who didn't allow their children to go to school. So that was why I was, enrolled in secondary school. Otherwise, my education would have terminated in primary six. But I went on, and all along, I've never dropped art because I've been doing art from my primary school days. Okay. I also did it in my secondary school days, and I won prizes for my school. And I was also doing theater at the same time. So Lagos gave me all the opportunity. In fact, in 1985, when I was in secondary school, That was what Lagos State Council Arts and Culture organized. They call it All Lagos State Secondary School Drama Competition. And I wrote the play for my school. I directed it and played the lead role. I won second prize.
Wow.
In fact, that was my link with the Lagos State Council Arts and Culture. So you can see the effect of the city in my life. You know, it has positively affected my art. It has positively affected how I think and how I reason. And because I know that some of my colleagues that I left in my hometown, Oyo, when I was leaving, this time I went back home. Even till now, anytime I go back to Oyo to see some of them, they see me like somebody coming from America or from London. So Lagos will give you all that flair, that will support whatever profession you choose. Whether you want to be an actor, whether you want to be a banker, whether you want to be a lawyer. If you practice in Lagos, what you get will be totally different from what you get anywhere else. So in the art sector today, I'm a fellow of Society of Nigerian Artists, which means that I have quite a number of colleagues across Nigeria. We meet, we discuss. Those of us from Lagos, they treat us with envy. Some of them will still wish to come and live in Lagos, but for whatever reason, either they cannot make it to Lagos, they prefer to stay away, because everybody knows that Lagos has a fast life. Lagos is not a place where you sit down idle, you don't work, or you just keep sleeping. Lagos does not offer me such. What Lagos has taught me is the spirit of hard work. To be very hardworking in everything I do, whether I do paintings, whether I write my plays, whether I write my novels, whether I package an event. You have to constantly think. You think from time to time, you become much more creative, which you may be laid back, in any other place, but you can't lay back in Lagos. You have to keep working. And then one of the things that influences your work is the fact that we have a lot of people in Lagos who will patronize whatever you do. And for me, that's a great advantage. If I finish a painting now, I know somebody, that will be willing to buy. I can call them on the phone, and then we'll send the image to me. We'll send the image, we agree on price, and then the work is sent to them.
All right. Still talking about Lagos. All right. Still talking about Lagos. I want you to talk about specific locations, in Lagos that you find most inspiring or that have inspired your artistic journey.
I think the inspiration began at Idumota. Idumota, that was in 1973. There used to be Soja Idumota in those days.
I remember that.
Yeah, so I was living and working at Ebutero. Ebutero is just a stone throw from Idumota.
Idumota, yes.
So, and then apart from learning vulcanizing, I was also selling things for my aunt, whose husband was the one teaching me vulcanizing. So at times she will give us she will give us some drugs to go and sell, or some ointments that we'll go and sell in traffic. Usually we did that in the Idumota, and that gave me access to the Soja Idumota, the cenotaph. Each time, in fact, the first time I saw it, I thought they were human beings just standing permanently there. So it was after I started, because I was young, I was 7 years old, and I've never seen that kind of a thing before. So seeing it for the first time, and those works were very realistic. They look like real human beings. So I always wonder what these guys are always doing here. Even when everybody closes at night, because at night we go to Idumota, they are still there, and they never change position. It took me a long time before I actually knew what sculpture was all about. We call it Ere in Yoruba. So it was somebody who explained to me that Ere no they mounted them there, and they will never live there.
I hope you didn't try having a conversation with them.
Beauty. Yes, now you do. You can. You can. It's just that it's not a conversation that's very physical. It's it's a mind game. You talk to them, they talk to you. So the explanation actually, kept me on, and then make me to think deeper more about art. Maybe this is one of the reasons I decided that no matter what happens, I'm going to study art later in life. So Idumota was a perfect place for me to live in at that time. And then when I left Idumota, I lived at Abule Jesha. And then at Abule Jesha, I was able to meet, an established artist who took me up and was training me even while in secondary school. It was this man who took me to Unilag for the first time. So seeing artworks at that time, Unilag was not offering visual arts as a course, but there was a man called Abayode Baba who had a studio inside Unilag and had been producing artworks. And when I saw those artworks, I was blown away. It firmed up my, determination to study art. Then later, this same master of mine now took me to Yaba Tech. Oh, this was where I gave it all up. That it's either art or nothing. Because when this man took me to art studios where I saw, people painting. This is something I love to do, and I was inspired. So Lagos gave me all of that. And then not far from Yaba Tech, this same man took me to, I think, the technical school, not far from Yaba Tech, where we also saw different kinds of artworks and people producing them. All of this led to, some kind of influences that can never be written off. It can't be written off. So I think I must confess that Lagos has actually made me. Lagos has made me because everything I got from Lagos, I apply it wherever I go. Even now that I'm in Abuja, it's something that I'm still applying. So
okay, still talking about Lagos and talking about monuments. As former NANTAP chairman, I'm sure you're aware that the National Theatre has seen a facelift recently, and in order for that place not to rot away again, what is expected of artists, creatives, to fully utilize that place?
Okay, I think many people don't know the story of National Theatre. National Theatre was in comatose, for a long time. When in 2005, I wrote a play to celebrate Ambassador Segun Olushola, who clocked 70 that year. The only venue we could use was National Theatre. At that time, all the cooling systems were down. None of them was working. And I remember that for the 2 hours we spent inside that hall, people were using our program to fund themselves. And that's how terrible the theatre was. And some of us were so committed that National Theatre, we would not allow it to leave us. And then when I became the chairman of NANTAP, NANTAP is National Association of Nigerian Theatre Arts Practitioners, Lagos State Chapter. We made use of National Theatre for many of our major performances, And I think despite the fact that National Theatre was having issues, we were trying to manage it, then until suddenly the Bankers Committee came in. Of course, before the Bankers Committee, we had an experience with one GM of National Theatre called Kabiru Yusuf, who became very hostile to the artists. And in fact, he just didn't want to see artists around National Theatre. And we kept telling him that it's like you are saying in the National Stadium, you don't want to see footballers. Or you don't want to see sportsmen. National Theatre is a second home to any artist in Nigeria. And if you allow it to thrive like that, of course, he had a lot of battles. He was one who led the demolition of the artist village, Also, I think that should be 2018 or thereabout, or 2019. All right. But when the Bankers Committee came, you remember that the minister, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, addressed the stakeholders. And what he told them was that the Bankers Committee will renovate the National Theatre and then hand it over back to the stakeholders and the government so that we can continue to practice our arts. But unfortunately, the change of government happened, and then we started hearing different stories that the bankers committee must make their money, the money they have spent. Some people said they spent 50 billion to renovate, and if they don't make their money, it's going to be at a loss. Whereas what we believe, what they made us believe they were doing was CSR. That all bankers, various banks came together to put money as CSR to be able to, uplift and renovate the National Theatre. Well, the National Theatre has been renovated now. It's only recently that the stakeholders began to cry out, to the federal government. We actually need the intervention of our able President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to rescue us from the claws of National Theatre. Because the National Theatre is the cultural soul of Nigeria. It's beyond, the edifice. It's beyond, the building. No, it's more of a place where the heart and soul of artists have been planted.
Beyond the cinema.
And cannot be removed. Many of us love National Theatre because we know that there's no any kind of art that you are bringing, whether you are bringing book fair, whether you are bringing theatre performance, whether you are bringing an art exhibition, whether you are holding a conference. How many arts building in Nigeria can host all sort of programs with ease, without one impinging on the other? Okay, so this is why the National Theatre is very, very important to us. And me, I would love to seize this medium to join my voice with the voices of the stakeholders. So I appeal to our amiable President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to please help us rescue the National Theatre from the claws of the Bankers Committee. We need the National Theatre. They are done with the renovation. Now, if we don't use it, all of us know that when you build a house and it lacks the human presence, it begins to deteriorate. Yes. If we don't move in and start using it, the National Theatre will start deteriorating again. So we want to appeal to President Tinubu to please rescue us, help us rescue National Theatre so that we can bring it back alive. The place is waiting for performances. So many performances are also waiting in the wings to go in and ignite that fire of creativity in National Theatre. So that's my take on it. Luckily for me, I am somebody who had seen National Theatre when it was at its best.
Me too.
Because my first time in National Theatre was actually in 1980. And when you get there at that time, you think you are abroad. And then we also witnessed how it began to deteriorate in the 90s. Until you go to the level it was before the intervention of the Bankers Committee. We thank the Bankers Committee. They have done well. We thank them. But they should please grant us access into National Theatre so that we can begin to use it again. And that's my take on it. Thank you.
All right. I'd like you to also talk about the role of institutions in preserving the African art. We have galleries, and just like you to also talk about that, the roles of institutions in preserving African art.
There's something I need to tell you here. If we don't have galleries, in fact, many artists today will be feeding from hand to mouth. The galleries have been fantastic. And because Lagos is a huge place, there's no amount of galleries you have in Lagos that can ever be enough. If you start 10 galleries today, all of them will get their patronage. Because Lagos is where we have the concentration of highest number of art patrons. You don't get them anywhere else. And so they need galleries, some of them need galleries to go. And then also, Lagos has the largest concentration of the number of artists in Nigeria. Most of them, they come from various parts of Nigeria. Whether it's southeast, whether
even sometimes
south,
from outside the country, they do come into Lagos.
Of course, they come to Lagos. Of course, we have some people who are not Nigerians and are always taking part in our shows with us. We have a couple of them, some from Cameroon, some from Ghana. In fact, some of them have relocated and living in Lagos permanently. So, but the gallery always comes to rescue. Anytime they have a show, And luckily for us, some of these galleries, strike a very good deal with the artist. They won't say, come and pay for the use of the space, because to pay for the space is very high. So they strike an agreement that, okay, if you bring your work, we take so percentage from each work sold. And for me, that's always been a fine agreement that we have had, especially since we started the Arising movement in 2006. We have used different kinds of galleries, and we have never had any issue with any of them. So the galleries are helping the development and the growth of artists in Lagos and Nigeria, at large. So we cannot take away these institutions. They help in one way or the other to regulate our practice. Well, not the kind of regulation that will say this is the kind of work you must do. No, but they are able to put life into the lines that we told. I mean, if you look at the role of Lagos State Council of Arts and Culture, they have been there. I mean, they register so many artists in Nigeria, whether performing, whether visual, and they are doing well. Then we also have the National Gallery has a place in Lagos. That's a space where people can exhibit their work. Also, we have the National Museum. They have a space for exhibition. People go there to also, showcase their work. So all these institutions and private galleries have done so well, have been magnanimous, and have been, germane to the development of arts and artists in Lagos State and in Nigeria. So we commend them.
Okay, as a total artist, we also found out that you can sing very well. So we want you to end this conversation with a song from you.
A song for Lagos.
A song for Lagos.
A song for Lagos?
Yes, from you.
Okay, let me just sing this one, which is a very popular one. Èkó àkété ìlú ọgbọ́n, arómisá lẹ́gbẹ́lẹ́gbẹ́, àrọ̀dẹ̀dẹ̀ tí kò lè já, ọba má bàlù Èkó jẹ́. Èkó ló lókun, Èkó ló lẹ́ja, ẹja àrọ̀ tiwa ló jẹ́, ẹja ọ̀sà tèkó mà ní, Èkó àkété ìlú ọgbọ́n, ọba má bàlù. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I haven't heard the particular song about Lagos. I've never heard it before.
Thank you so much.
No, I've not heard this. I've not heard this one before.
Well, that's a new one. It's part of the experience of Lagos. I'm a Lagosian. Forget the tribal part.
Don't let Lagosians come for you.
Thank you so much, Mufu Onifade, total artist.
And
pleasure. He has spoken extensively on Lagos, an artist's perspective of a city-state. Thank you so much for your time on the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for hosting me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. The conversation continues after this. Stay with us.